Like I could just go to the pool, look at the swimmers next to me and try to beat them, and that was good enough. But I think it's kind of, if you continue to pull from the same motivation, well, like you're gonna get burnt out. Like that that area of motivation is gonna get burnt out. So for me, I wanted to give that a break. And so really in the past 3 years, I feel like I was pulling motivation from really inspiring people outside of sport. So you mentioned Any Question and Ed Baker and yourself. Like you are two people that I pulled a lot of motivation from. We weren't necessarily working on the exact same things. Like you guys were trying to build like an incredible business. I was trying to be the best swimmer in the world, but there's the mentality and the approach, I think, is actually very similar. And so talking to highly motivated people, I felt like it's something that really gave me a lot of motivation and drive on a day-to-day basis.
Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show presented by Volridge Health. I'm your host, Greg Bennett. And today, well, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome back one of the world's greatest swimmers, Ryan Murphy. Ryan has built one of the most remarkable resumes in the world of swimming with 3-time Olympian and 9-time Olympic gold medalist. 9-time Olympic medalist, 5-time gold and 2 times silver and 2 times bronze. Absolutely outstanding. 7-time world champion, 9-time short course world champion, and just countless of national and international titles. A world record holder, US Olympic swim team captain, and just a true ambassador for the world of swimming. Since our last chat in April of 2022, Ryan has added to his legacy with standout performances at the 2023 World Championships and the Paris 24 Olympics, where he continued to prove why he's one of the most dominant backstroke swimmers of all time. Today, we're going to unpack his journey over the last couple of years, explore the mindset and preparation behind his success, and hear about the future for Ryan Murphy, both in and out of the pool. So, Ryan, without further ado, mate, welcome back to the show. How are
I
you?
love it. A great intro, Greg. It's great to be back.
couple of stumbles, but I love a good intro, buddy. And it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. Where are you at the moment? Where are you calling from?
So I'm in Orinda. California. So my wife and I just bought a house out here. So we moved in about a month and a half ago. So it's good. We're prepping up. We're gonna have a baby in January. So we are growing up fast.
Oh, mate, congratulations. January what? We got all January babies in our house. We're all January.
Yeah, January 22nd is the due date. So
All
we'll
right.
see.
Oh, mate, it's like in the book Outliers. Did you ever read Outliers?
No, it's
But
literally like I have like a stack of books that I in the order that I want to read them. Outliers is number two in the stack.
it's a
Uh,
great book. Malcolm Gladwell talks about, how you have hard work and you have talent, but then he
mhm,
said there's also this kind of opportunity, and there's a whole chapter on the book about being born in January and how,
mhm.
I mean, it depends on where you are in the world, but in Australia, where our sport is January to December, as an 8-year-old, if you're born in January, you're that much older than a kid that's born in December, right? So you tend to be in the better teams, which give you the better coaches, which advance your sporting career. So both our kids are actually born in January. And it wasn't by accident. But we laugh because in the US it's less done by January to December, and it's often done more in the school year. So we're kind of like, we screwed that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're rocking like January would be more like August, September out here.
Exactly. Oh, mate, that's really exciting for you. And that's your first, right? You go, yeah,
That's our
number
first.
number one. Well, make sure you cancel your calendar for February, but
I
it's
know,
all hands on deck.
I know. I literally have like one thing scheduled in January. Right now, I'm clear for like the first 3.5 weeks of February. So I'm uh I'm ready. It's gonna be trial by fire out here.
Oh, mate, it's exciting news for you. And have you had much of a break since the Paris Olympics, or have you kept swimming? What's on your training these days?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like right now I'm working out more like a regular person, So I'm not ready to be in like the 20 hours a week of working out stage. Right
Yeah.
now I'm working out more closer to like 6 to 10 hours a week. Uh, but I'm getting after it. Like I have the garage gym all set up now, so I've been doing a lot of like circuits.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get like a lot of different movements in. I'm swimming like typically about 3 times a week.
Nice.
But I don't want to be coached just yet. So I'm going in on my own time, just doing whatever I want to do, doing what's feeling good. So it's been
Mm.
nice. It's been nice to get away, but to continue to stay in shape.
Yeah, it feels good just to actually lift a bit, doesn't it? Like just feel strong and lift with no real purpose. I've been doing a bit of that myself the last 6 months for sure, just focusing on the lifting rather than running and biking and swimming. It's like I actually just feel good just being in the garage. I like it.
Absolutely. It's funny. It's like I'm like relearning a lot of the discipline
Yeah.
because I think like I'll give an example. I was just in Boston and I flew back to San Francisco, came over to the house, and then that day I just hit like a really good gym session, and then the whole next day I was like, dang, like my back hurts, my knees hurt. It's just like the ability to like ease back into a workout after travel. I just like completely forgot that piece of working out.
Isn't it funny? And mate, look, you're still. I think you're still in your 20s, right? I mean,
Yeah, 29.
you're young, but you've got a lot out of your body in a period of time. You
Oh
know what I
yeah,
mean? Like you're still young and you're strong and you're fit, but there's also an element of like be a little careful. It only gets harder.
absolutely.
It only gets harder. Oh my god! But mate, look, let's do this. I want to reflect a little bit. Like I said in the intro, it was April 2022 you were last on. God,
Mhm.
time flew. And you were one of our guys at Any Question. Ed Baker and I built that company, and to have a rock star like you on that platform was just unbelievable. And that's when we really did get to know each other. And since then we sold Any Question to Whoop, and we've all moved on. But mate, you had world championships and Olympics thrown in, with of course all the Olympic trials and everything else. This last phase that you've gone through, this last couple of years, did you find that was that a big lift for you when you consider you push into 2016, you push into the COVID Olympics? Did that feel like a heavy load to you compared to those others, or was it just routine and another kind of phase?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was obviously it's always hard work, but it's hard work that I'm very comfortable with at
Mm.
this point. So I think like really the biggest thing for me in the last 3 years was trying to pull motivation from different parts of different parts of life. I
Mm.
felt like between like really growing up, I was just so locked into like raw competitiveness. Like I could just go to the pool, look at the swimmers next to me and try to beat them, and that was good enough. But I think it's kind of if you continue to pull from the same motivation well, like you're gonna get burnt out. Like that that area of motivation is gonna get burnt out. So
Mm.
for me, I wanted to give that a break. And so really in the past 3 years, I feel like I was pulling motivation from really inspiring people outside of sport. So you mentioned Any Question and Ed Baker and yourself. Like you are two people that I pulled a lot of motivation from. We weren't necessarily working on the exact same things. Like you guys were trying to build like an incredible business. I was trying to be the best swimmer in the world, but there's the mentality and the approach I think is actually very similar. And so
Mm.
talking to highly motivated people, I felt like is something that really gave me a lot of motivation and drive on a day to day basis.
Mm. It's pretty cool. I like how you mentioned it's like you get to the point when you've been doing something long enough. There's a comfort in the uncomfortableness. It's like you know the grind, you know the work that needs to be done, but it's the intentional way you're training to find that extra little bit of motivation. I really like that. It's kind of like how do you get that little bit more out of yourself that you have to keep finding? I feel like watching you swim and your competitors, and obviously I'm an Aussie, but I'm always cheering for Ryan Murphy in the pool. So sorry, Aussie backstrokers, but it's you have to get a lot out of yourself. And the thing is, I found like watching swimming over the last few years, obviously with our good mate Brett Hawke and others, it's made me more interested in swimming. You guys work so hard for such long stretches to have these short little windows of opportunity. I know you've got sort of some. What was that professional swimming that you had? I don't know if it's still going.
Oh, the International Swimming League.
Yeah, so you've had that. Is that still going?
that hasn't been going. So that was
Yeah. And,
the the benefactor behind that. Like he ended up being like founder, CEO, and investor. But his
mm.
assets are Ukrainian energy
Oh,
assets.
that's
So
right. That's right.
yeah, so
Yes.
a rough string of luck for well, for that professional week.
Yeah, yeah. But look, I want to talk about Paris Olympics. Firstly, the trials. Relief, or was
Mhm.
there an expectation that you were going to just tick that box?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think I'm always nervous going into the first swim of the meet. The first swim of the meet, you're like
Mm,
you have a good idea, and you have no regrets on. I had no regrets on how I approached the season. I felt
mm,
like I felt like I was going to be in a good spot to perform, but there's still, I mean, there's still like a slight level of uncertainty. And I'll say it this way, like I feel like when I'm training throughout the year, really all I'm trying to do is increase my probability of good swims at the end of the year. And I felt like I had to increase that probability about as much as I can. But you still don't know how you're going to wake up on the day. You know, you wake up and you're sick, you have a migraine, you know, that can derail things a little bit. So going into that first race of the meet, I felt like I was in a good spot, and that first race felt good. And so after that one, I was like, okay, I feel like this is in my control. If I'm able to manage nerves, I'm gonna make this team. And I carried that confidence all the way through. So I ended up going into the 100 back final, feeling really confident behind the blocks. Won that race and made the team
mm,
and
mm.
felt great about it. Going into the 200 back is a little bit different just because it's such a painful race, and so the mental preparation is more so like I think of it as like Rocky 3. He's about to fight Mr. T. He's got to train harder than he's ever trained, prepare for pain. That's kind of the mindset I'm getting into before the 100 or before the 200 back. And I felt like I handled pain well in that race, made the team as well there. So definitely a level of relief. But I knew it was in my wheelhouse to go make the team involved.
I love the analogy, by the way, and yeah, 200 backstroke for an all-out power guy like you. It's like this raw
Yeah.
power, and then you just got to keep hanging on. It's like brutal, and it reminds me of always like the 800 on the track. I always feel like the 200 in the
Hmm.
pool, 800 on the track. They're both brutal races, and it's like it's a long sprint, and there's an
Yeah.
element of pacing, but it's like not a lot. Like we're talking half seconds here or there. I mean, it is crazy. But you talk about managing your nerves. Are there any kind of techniques that you specifically do, or is it just kind of like telling yourself, "Look, I've done the work. You're ready. You're ready." Like, what is that kind of mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it's really like you're kind of throwing everything you have at it. So
Yeah,
for me, like throughout the day, so call it like 8 hours before the race. Throughout the day, I'm trying to have healthy distractions. So I'm gonna have like funny engaging shows on my computer that I'm watching, and just trying to keep the mind off it. once
hmm,
I'm once I'm at the pool, like I get to the pool about 2 hours before a race. Then I know my routine so well. Like I have the exact same routine when I'm going to the pool. So once I'm 2 hours inside of 2 hours before a race, I can I can just follow the plan that I always do. That's where I'm comfortable. And then
mm,
right before the heat, then uh, that's where I'm okay feeling nerves. Like
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna let myself feel the adrenaline, get excited about that, and and I think it ultimately helps me to feel a little bit nervous behind the blocks.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. That just gives you that energy. Can you share us a little bit of your routine, or how much of that is your secret sauce?
I mean, I think it's pretty general. Like I'll get I get to the pool. Yeah, I get to the pool about 2 hours before. I'll go over to the chiropractor. This is like this is for the big meets. Like I don't have access to a chiropractor when I'm going to to in season meets.
Right.
So I'll go over to the chiropractor, get an adjustment. Typically get a psoas release and a subscap release. Then I'll do a little bit of dynamic stretching,
Mm-hmm.
just to get a little bit of movement. Then I'll do a little bit of core activation. So that typically is like 50 to 100 reps of ab exercises. So nothing too crazy there. Then I'll hop on the foam roller, do a quick foam roll out. Then I'll do like a more of like static stretch. Then about an hour and 10 minutes before the race, I'll get into the water. I got a 30-minute warm up that I'll typically do. So it
Mm.
starts off with some just kind of like longer aerobic swimming, a little bit of kicking, then some drill work. Like I am drill work is kind of where I start, and then I'll
Mm.
get the heart rate up. So like aerobic activation, trying to get the heart rate up to like 150. Then I'll do a little bit of resistance, and I'm going in depth. I'm giving you the
This is
whole
awesome. This is
thing.
awesome. Yeah, keep
Uh,
going.
then I get into some resistance work. So I'll put on a parachute and start getting up to speed, but doing it with resistance. So I could really feel
Yeah.
feel the stroke. And then I'll do pace work that's race specific. So for a 200 back, I'll do 50s at that pace, and that gets me going.
How fast is a 50 at that pace, just for listeners that don't know?
So yeah, for 50 meter, I'm typically trying to go like 28.5. And then I
In
mean,
warm up, everybody. In warm up.
yeah, there's a tempo there's a tempo I'm trying to hit too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the tempo. I'm honestly thinking about the tempo more than anything. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm warming up, and if I'm hitting that tempo, sometimes I'm going to go at 26. Other times I'm going to go at a 28 high.
Yeah.
And so I try not to get like too locked into the time, because that is something that can throw me off mentally a little bit.
Mm.
Is
Mm.
thinking a little bit too much about the times I'm going in warm up, and reading into it. So that's yeah. So that's something that's something that I adjusted in the middle of my career to make sure that I wasn't thinking too much in warm up.
Yeah, yeah. Don't overdo it. I love how you spend so much time doing all that fascial release. Uh, like you, we flew our chiropractor to all our major events. Dr. Alex Keith, who's been on this show, and actually Dr. Ted Falcon, we'd also fly him. He was actually the head of the US track and field team for a while, the chiropractic side, Ted Falcon. But anyway, we always use them for the fascial release stuff, exactly like you're talking about, especially right before race to really release the lats and very cool subscap, everything that you just mentioned. I just love that. It sounds so familiar. Um, but look, you get to Paris. You've already done Rio, Tokyo. You've medaled so well at those. Was there an element of I've already ticked boxes and I'm free to play in Paris, or was there, I think about the Aussies were pretty vocal about beating the US team. Obviously, you had the Chinese having massive impact. The French turning up. It's you're a competitive bugger, so I'm sure you let all of that fuel you. What was the energy like going into Paris?
Yeah. I mean, I think throughout the year, you absolutely let everything you can fuel you. So it's like, yeah, throughout the year, it's kind of like, give another like sports reference, like the Michael Jordan documentary, the Chicago Bulls documentary,
Yeah.
where he's like, yeah, and that's all I needed, and that made it personal.
Mm.
I think he was talking about, I can't remember who he was talking about. It might have been like Gary Payton. Um, but yeah, you kind of have that mentality throughout the year of like you're grasping at straws to feel like slighted, or anything that's just going to get you fired up, that
Mm.
you can pull from. Just because you're trying to maximize output throughout the year. Once you get to the meet, like I try to keep everything as simple as possible once I'm at the meet.
Mm.
So it's like I that's why I have like the same type of routine and warm up. So there's no real thought that's going into it. And in the Olympics, like you're gonna be feeling enough like nerves slash excitement, adrenaline before the race, that I don't need to pull from anywhere else. And if I do, like I'm kind of going more I'm kind of going more the route of trying to manufacture it myself. So if I need to feel more excitement before the race, I'm doing more of like hyperventilation breathing techniques
Yeah.
to get myself feeling the adrenaline, rather than like looking around and maybe reading like a media clipping to get to get the fire burning.
Yeah. Are you do you wear the headphones, or you do you like music before you're going out, or you kind of just like to? keep things around you?
Oh no, I like to listen to music for sure.
What are you listening to? Do you
I
remember?
mean, if I yeah, I mean, if I'm like before the race, I'm listening to like house music. So like, like yeah, so it's just like music that I feel like you could just like inject that music into my veins and I'll be feeling good. So just yeah, stuff that gets the heart rate up and yeah. So everyone's different there. There's definitely been times where I've listened to like country before a race if
Yeah.
I'm trying to like calm down. Uh,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
specific Olympics, this specific Olympics, I felt like I could handle more adrenaline than what the nerves were giving me naturally. And so I was trying to definitely amplify the excitement.
I've been thinking a little bit about this recently about energy, in terms of how do we get it, and how do we. And I was, do you remember that old Public Image Limited? You're probably too young. Pill. It's an old punk band. They had this song called "Anger Gives Us Energy." A really cool song, by the way. You need to go if you haven't checked it out, listeners. Brian, go check it out. Anger gives us energy, and I was thinking about how anger or hate or all of these things very powerful energy in the short term. Whereas love
Hmm.
for what you do tends to be the great energy you need for longevity. This is my theory I'm coming up with, by the way. I'm just blurting it out here because
Oh,
I
I 100%
feel.
agree.
Yeah. And so I kind of, I think about you. Were you team captain this time around as well? I know you and Caleb were captains at Tokyo. Were you the captain this time in Paris as well?
Yeah. Yes.
And so that role as a captain, obviously, swimming of all sports has a lot of fairly youthful people. What's your role there in terms of helping them find their energy to get the best out of themselves? So they're not too much adrenaline, but also make sure they got enough adrenaline to perform at their best.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, my goal as a leader is to help them feel comfortable. Like
Yeah.
everyone, everyone on the U.S. team, like they made it through Olympic trials. They're clearly good at dealing with pressure. They just need to feel comfortable on the Olympic stage to simply just do what they do
Mm.
and not change the routine, not overthink it, because they're good enough to be on the team just with just in our case, Olympic trials is 6 weeks before. So if they do what they did 6 weeks before, like they're going to be in a good spot
Yeah.
to perform. And so I'm really just trying to get them comfortable with the moment and really just prepared. The Olympics is it's always an event where the first couple days the organizers are still figuring out how things are going to run. Like they're constantly making adjustments
Mm.
on how to optimize, the bus schedule, how to optimize the village, the dining hall, and because it is a lot of volunteers, so um, the first couple of days are always a little bit of mayhem at the Olympics, and you kind of just have to go with the flow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so getting the team prepared for that, I think was priority number one. And then there's a level of just reacting to how the coaching staff is.
Hmm.
So we had a different head coaching staff in 2021 versus 2024.
Hmm.
So and I was really comfortable with the staff in 2021. That was Dave Durden, who's my day-to-day coach at Cal, and Greg Meehan, who
Yeah.
was Dave Durden's assistant for a long time at Cal. So they're very, very similar personalities. And I understand how they operate. So they're just going to give all of the logistical information to the athletes. And so, like, really, our role as leaders was just purely focusing in on the mental side of feeling
Mm.
comfortable walking on the pool deck.
Hmm.
The staff this time around, Todd and Anthony, they were focusing a little bit more just on the mental side.
Mm.
And like, they're like, oh, look, like this is a big moment, but you're prepared for this moment. That was kind of like their messages. And so like Nick Fink and I had to kind of fill in and talk more about the logistics of like how things run.
Classic.
And so
Yeah.
you're reacting to the coaching staff as well.
Yeah, I love that. Now let's talk about you personally, individually. A bronze in the 100 back, and then you guys got silver in the 4x100 medley. We can come back to that in a moment. And then you got gold in the new event, the 4x100 mixed medley. personally, you satisfied, stoked, happy? What was your reaction coming out of the Olympics with your medal tally?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like I brought what I had each day.
Yeah.
I feel like I definitely optimized for how the body was feeling. Um, like I got sick pretty early on in the Olympics, and like I wasn't gonna like mention that in the moment at the Olympics. It's just like I don't need anyone to feel bad for me. It's like kind of like
Hmm.
I've I've come around to the idea that if you swim long enough, odds are you're gonna have some sickness at the big meet. You know, so it's like I've been swimming at the big stage for like 10 years, and this was the first time I've ever been sick. So that's just kind of like what it is. So the hunter back, like I actually felt really good about the hunter back. I really was my body was not feeling good that day.
You went
Uh,
for it though. Anybody hasn't gone, go YouTube the 100 back. Coming off your turns, you and Caleb on your turns. I know we talked about that last episode, but just oh my god, you come off that wall, and you're doing everything you can to hold it together. I was just the pain. I could feel it through watching the TV.
oh,
Uh,
I know. I was like, yeah, I definitely went for it.
you did.
And so that's like, yeah, so that was my adjustment that I made based on how the body was feeling. I was like, you know what, like I'm gonna go out there and I'm just gonna lay this one out there and see how it goes.
Mm.
So yeah, so that one was I felt good. I felt good about that one. The 200 back, I don't feel good about. I'm never gonna feel good about the 200 back. So essentially, like I was kind of just playing. I was kind of like playing the energy conservation game in semis, and I misjudged it. So I ended up missing the final
Mm-hmm.
by a tenth of a second.
Yeah.
And so that one's always gonna that event is always gonna make me mad. Uh, and so it's kind of like when I start to get mad about it, I really just try to zoom out and just look at the career more in
Oh,
like
please do. Yeah, please
totality.
do, mate. Yeah, honestly, that nobody goes through having a perfect career. Um,
Exactly.
and and just for reference for everyone listening, Ryan got won the gold in Rio for both the 100 and the 200 backstroke, and then in Tokyo he got the where'd you go here? Uh,
Silver in the 200,
200,
bronze in
yeah,
the 100.
yeah, silver and bronze. So, mate, it's just been an epic, triple. As I mentioned earlier, the 4x100 medley relay for the men. You guys, as the Americans, you've won that since it started in 1980, coming all the way through. Um, that one getting, not quite getting the gold in that one. The Chinese, were exceptional. Um, what was the team spirit like on the back of that? I remember watching the commentary. Being that we live here in Florida, it's
Mm-hmm.
American commentary, and they kind of made a pretty big thing about it. Did you feel any sort of backlash on not winning the gold? Was that, or what was that like?
Yeah, honestly, we didn't. I still probably haven't even gone back and looked at looked at the media from the Olympics, so I'm honestly not super aware of like what was being said. Like I know, like I'm really close with Nick Fink, and
Yeah,
Nick and I were like we were both like really upset after that one.
yeah.
Um, like yeah, just kind of like yeah, there's like things that we wish we would have done differently, like coming off of the mixed medley the night before, in terms of just like trying to skip media and going to the warm down pool. That would have been our adjustment. Um, so yeah, I mean, we felt really bad about it. At the same time, it's like hats off to the Chinese. Like they had
Hmm.
an incredible relay. I mean, and really like their freestyler probably has
Oh,
probably like the biggest gap between number one and number two in the world is the 100 free
well, he's swimming a
with that Chinese guy.
45.92, 45.92 pan swam. For that anchor leg. The 100. I
Yeah,
know it's with a kind
absurd.
of a flying start or whatever, but it's like, oh my God, 45.92. I can't run it in that speed.
Yeah,
Um,
he was absolutely fine.
but
Like,
you still hold the world records for them. You still got the world record. The Americans have the world record still in a 326, which he did in Tokyo. And you got the Olympic record still. So they didn't take that from you. And I think that's something that, you can hang your hat on. Um, that I think it was. I honestly think you had an outstanding Olympics. It was great to see you medal again. For a third time. I don't know how many. I should have done my homework, but how many swimmers have gone? Obviously, Phelps is a special character, but there aren't that many that have medaled in 3 Olympics in a row, are they?
Uh, I'm not sure about that stat. I mean, the one that I like is in terms of individual medals at the Olympics.
Yeah.
I'm fourth all time on for men. For men Olympic swimmers, I'm fourth all time. So the guys ahead of me in terms of individual medals are Michael Phelps, Ryan Lochte, and Mark Spitz.
Wow.
And
It's
so
good
that
company.
that one's cool.
That is really cool. That is really cool. And look, I'm going to jump ahead because it just feels right now. You got LA Olympics, home Olympics, mate. Do we go for four? Do we go for the four in a row and medaling at a fourth Olympics?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's like it's such a that's so appealing. A home Olympics is insane. Like even just thinking to the Paris Olympics, like looking up in the stands before races, you'd see entire sections just jumping up and down with French flags. And even though they're not cheering for you, like you feel the adrenaline from that. So I can't even
Mm.
imagine like if all of those sections are cheering for you, uh, what you'd end
Oh,
up feeling. It's also going to be a crowd that's 2 times bigger than any other facility that
yeah.
swimming's ever been in.
Yeah.
So
Because where are they
that
building that? Where was that? Tell me about that. I remember hearing that. Yeah.
it's going to be in SoFi Stadium, which
Oh,
is
the big
yeah,
football stadium. Oh my God.
which is
What a,
unreal. Like it's the nicest NFL stadium
oh, by far.
uh, that
Yeah.
there is. I mean, which means it's got to be one of the nicest stadiums in the world.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be an absurd experience. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to do it. Like right now, I'm still just so much in like the planning phase of like, okay, how do I attack this?
Yeah.
And kind of trying to figure out a plan, working backwards from 2028 of what do I need to do in order to be in a spot to compete for wins out there.
Oh, I love it. This is the one thing. If I was to say I miss one thing from being a professional athlete, is that sense of tremendous purpose and planning to that singular mission. I try and bring that same kind of mindset into the work that I do in whatever business, but quite often that very intentional behavior that you have as an athlete is, at your very core, it's like, okay, LA Olympics 2028. We're sitting here recording on, late December of 24, and it's kind of going, okay, it's 3.5 years out. And the planning process and everything that happens, and now you're going to be a dad, and there's going to be a whole lot of different kind of motivations, I'm sure that you'll be able to reach for, which I think will be really cool. Yeah, but the planning starts. The work doesn't quite start yet, not in full, but the planning starts, and you start to think about world championships and other events to lead you up to there, because you've got to still keep in the mix a little bit, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to, yeah, I'm trying to think through all of that. I mean, definitely like, definitely 27 World Championships. Realistically, 2026 summer. I'd be ready to go for that. Trying to decide honestly on 25 World Championships. So a little bit of that is like discussing with I mean, it's a little bit it's discussing with brands to make sure that like they're happy with a partnership in a bunch of different scenarios. So there's
Yeah.
a little bit of collaboration on this summer.
All right. Well, maybe we got everybody listening. We need to make sure we got plenty of great brands getting behind Ryan for 2028, so he can support his family and and
Yeah, yeah.
crush the Olympics. Big shout out to all the brands listening. Let's do it. Probably the biggest ones are probably not in swimming. I mean, I'm sure you got your suits and stuff, but um, non-endemic type suits. But listen, I'm really excited personally. I just got to say, 2028 Olympics, my kids will be 10 and 8, so that they're that perfect age, and being that they're dual citizen Australian American, they'll go LA Olympics, and then 4 years later we have Brisbane Olympics. So I'm kind of like, okay,
Oh yeah.
I've said to Laura, okay, we're doing both, and we're doing them both well. I'm not even sure. I was talking to NBC about potentially doing some commentary, but I'm like, I don't even know if I want to work. I just want to enjoy. I just want to spend some money. Obviously, it's going to cost a fortune, so I'm already kind of getting my head around that, But I'll be like, "Hey, Ryan, got anybody? Like, it's going to be like I don't want to miss out. I think it's going to be super special. And I'm excited that you're at least you have it on your radar, which I know it's still pretty early coming straight off Paris in your third Olympics, but very cool. I now want to just shift gear a little bit and go to some questions from the audience, mixed in with a few other things here. Fabrizio Fernandez, he wants to know, what are your top 3 drills to improve explosiveness, technique, and overall endurance in freestyle? Um, so a lot of triathletes listening to this, freestyle, it tends to be the focus for many of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's also an element, we love to talk about mindset and everything else on this show. But when it comes to specifics of swimming, have you got sort of top 3 drills that you'd want to share for explosiveness and technique and overall endurance? There's a lot in that.
I know. I'm like, yeah, that's the whole stroke. Uh, I mean, I think on the explosiveness side, like I love like medicine ball throwdowns. So I think that
Mm,
mimics. I mean, that really does end up mimicking pretty similar to the path that your arm swallow on freestyle. So when you're doing the med ball throwdowns, just make sure that you're keeping your elbows high as you're doing that. You don't want to make it like a tricep throwdown. So keep the elbows high just to make sure that it's a lat exercise.
mm,
So that for explosiveness. In terms of
cool.
technique, I really like doing single arm swimming. I think
Mm,
it's really good. Obviously at the front of your stroke at the catch, it's really good for isolating the catch, especially if you keep your opposite arm by your side. That's how I like to do it. So
mm,
at the top of your stroke, isolate the catch, but then you want to focus on the body rotation as you're going through as well. So in freestyle, it ends up being pretty similar to backstroke. I think it is a pretty core driven stroke. So if you're
mhm,
able to drive rotation with your obliques and your abs, that's going to be really good. And then when you're working on the recovery of your stroke, I like to just have a dangly hand. So you don't want to waste any energy. If you have a stiff hand coming over the top, when your arm's coming up and over the water, that's a wasting energy. So having a really floppy hand is important. And then once you hit the water, that's when you tense up the hand again and make sure you're in a good position to catch. So I
mm,
like single arm there. And then for endurance, and I'll make this a little bit more triathlon specific. I mean, in triathlon, you kind of have to go with a little bit more of an arm driven stroke,
mhm.
just because it's all legs after that. So I like the idea of using, of using a pull buoy and then putting a band around the ankles, just to make sure that your legs aren't even moving at all. You're purely isolating the arms, and just getting a really good workout in with arms there.
I love it. I'll add one bit we used to do a little bit exactly like you're saying with the pool boy and the band, but we tie a towel to it. You start with a tea towel, and then finally, once you're strong enough, you did a beach towel. And I found dragging that towel because I experimented. You mentioned earlier about the using the parachute and that kind of stuff, and I actually didn't love the parachute because it just felt a bit bouncy, whereas the
Mm-hmm.
towel was just such a dead permanent weight that I used to love like doing sort of 3K fartlek, swimming, 25 fast, 25 easy, 50-50, that kind of thing, and going through
Mm-hmm.
fartlek and then taking that towel off and just doing some explosive work and bringing the legs back in. Oh, my favorite workout of all time. But mate, that's awesome. I love all that. How much are you doing like as a professional swimmer? How much of it is in the water versus out? Because you mentioned the medicine ball and the throwdowns. Are you doing a ton of work outside of the pool as well?
Yeah, yeah. So in a typical week, we're in the water like 16 hours a week, and then we're doing stuff outside the water for about 4.5. Like
Mm,
working out outside the water about 4.5, and I do a lot of like yoga and recovery stuff
mm,
beyond that. So
yeah,
the 4.5 outside of the water, that ends up being 3 hours in the weight room. So we'll go 3 times a week for 1 hour session in the weight room, and then we'll do 45 minutes twice a week. That's more like plyometrics, and so
yeah,
that ends up being a lot of like core exercises, med ball. We'll do a little bit of like target boxing because
mm,
that's a really good core exercise for us as well, and it gets the shoulders going. We'll do battle ropes in there. Sometimes there'll be an assault bike mixed in. Um, we do more of the assault bike at the beginning of the year because that's more of just like a fitness
Yeah.
test for us.
Yeah.
Um, so those are the main things we're doing in the dry land as well.
You must be doing a bit of bounding, or like the way I've watched you guys jump off your blocks, or for you, jumping out of that water, that explosiveness in the legs. Are you? It takes me back to when I was running track in school. And we jump up onto two high jump mats.
Hmm.
I don't know how the hell I could probably hardly get onto a brick now, but it was like, are you guys doing a ton of that kind of like explosive jumping?
Yeah, absolutely. That ends up being more like a superset in the weight room. So we'll go
Oh, right,
from,
right.
if you're doing like a squat, then you'll go straight from the squat to the box jump, or you could do from squat to broad jump, or squat to,
Yeah.
there's a thing called Kaiser jump, where you
Yes.
get a little bit of resistance over the shoulders. And then sometimes we're doing assisted jumps. So we'll put bands hanging from a pull-up bar, and then we'll grab those bands, and then we get a little extra
Oh,
assistance on the jump as well. So
oh, fun.
all kinds of different variations of jumps.
I love it. I got a question now for myself. You know, I've spent a lot of time talking to physiologists and sports scientists on this show, and it feels like the last 10 to 15 years, how much training has evolved and changed. And I don't know if you know of, but in the world of triathlon, there's what's known as the Norwegian method. We have uh, some incredible Norwegian athletes that are being coached by a guy by the name of Oliver Alexander Boo. He's actually an engineer by trade, but really is a physiologist that just they're testing constantly. Whether
Hmm.
it's VO2, lactate testing, the whole lot. Have you found over your career, over the last sort of 15 years, that the way you're actually training is being monitored a lot more closely, that the physiologists are getting more and more involved?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just so many more. I mean, there's so many more like wearables that you can utilize.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think definitely, like, because I mean, really, like what we're trying to do is we're always trying to push the edge. Like we're trying to be on the line of pushing the body, but we don't want to go into overtraining.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
we're always trying to
exactly.
get a hint of overtraining before it happens. So I think sleep data is really important, and and just understanding, like, okay, if the heart rate variability is going down, resting heart rate's going up, that's not going to be a good thing. I do a monthly blood test, and I'm looking at biomarkers uh, in that sense to try to get a hint of how things are going.
Mm,
In
mm.
the past year, I made an investment into a Finnish company, and I was beta testing for them, but they do a daily spit test, and it'll measure your testosterone and cortisol.
Oh,
And so
yeah, yeah.
you'll get a quick read on how how your body's reacting to the training load as well. So there's
How accurate have you found that? Because I've been talking to another tech company in Boston doing a similar kind of thing, and we were kind of looking at it and going, it's getting there. But did you find that to be really accurate, the cortisol and testosterone through saliva? Because I mean, this is obviously on the, like you said, it's beta testing. It's quite futuristic in the sense that we haven't seen it before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a couple different strategies. I mean, I think some people are kind of just going in and applying the the COVID test technology to testosterone and cortisol, and measuring that way. That apparently ends up having like a 10% range. So that ends up being not
Yeah,
completely accurate.
yeah.
The group that I'm working with is I mean, they're trying to be like like absolutely spot on. And so
Let's
they've
talk
got,
offline about this one. I want to talk
yeah.
offline. Definitely you've piqued my interest.
Yeah, absolutely,
I,
absolutely.
I'm fascinated by all these health tech startups, and especially these ones that are collecting data that we haven't been able to collect. I know there's a race out there for you know um, lactate testing, the non-invasive ways. At the moment, it's still quite brutal um, and archaic. You know, taking blood off every finger, but I'm looking forward to seeing what can happen in that field as well. Um, but mate, you've had an amazing decorated career. What's been sort of some of the biggest challenges you've faced And I guess, and how did you overcome them as you went through? Has there been anything stand out where you thought, oh man, this is it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I consider myself pretty lucky. Like, I think I'm a really like steady personality. So like like the day to day. Obviously, there's days I'm not as motivated. But I think like I have a quick frame on things. Like the days when I wake up and I don't want to go to the pool, I just remind myself it's like, look, like if I skip practice right here, like I've done that. I've done that, like I mean, you really count on like one hand the amount of times I've done that, but I always felt so much like guilt and regret for skipping that practice, and I'm just like, I don't want to feel that, 3 hours from now. So get to the just get out of bed, So
Sometimes you hate that as how disciplined you are, right? You're like, gosh, do I have to just kind of just not be this person for a moment?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would honestly say like from the pure swimming standpoint, like I love that. Like I love the pursuit of trying to optimize. I really
Mm,
consider the job to be like I'm optimizing health.
yeah.
And so I love that pursuit. I mean, I think really like where I get frustrated the most is kind of on the marketing side. Like I consider myself to be like a really like humble person, so like I still just haven't completely wrapped my head around the whole idea of social media and like putting enough content out there for people to engage with. And so
Mm,
that's always like the mental struggle with myself, like of actually like marketing myself.
mm,
That's where I struggle. I'm actually so happy to like market other people's
yeah.
things and brands, but marketing myself, I think is an area where I just honestly don't enjoy it a ton.
No, I totally empathize with you. And this generation that you're in, like I was kind of in a little bit of the old school generation where if you won a race, you got a cover of a magazine and away you went. And then I remember
Hmm.
when social media started kicking into top gear and suddenly all these athletes that were okay, but they were really good at creating YouTube content and TikToks or whatever. And you're like, what? I thought it was about winning races. And suddenly you had to change and shift and be this influencer. And you're like, I actually just want to compete and be the fastest athlete in the world. I didn't know I had to be an influencer as well. And look, at the end of the day, to overcome that, I guess you buy yourself a team, and figure out how they can manage it
Hmm.
for you and get the most out
Exactly.
of you. But even then, you feel like, oh my god, how much do I want to give of my life? It's like, so I get it, mate. I empathize with you. Now, I have a question from Lee Shelvis. He says, "What did you consider your greatest weakness over the competition, and what did you do to overcome it?"
That's a great question.
Like we know
I
your
mean,
strengths. We know your strengths are the starts and the turns, and then you obviously
yeah,
you're a great backstroker. So the in
yeah. I
betweens are
mean,
great too. So
yeah. I feel like it's been different. It's been different weekends at different times. Like I felt like when I was first starting college, I felt like my aerobic was really weak, and so like that ultimately led to being pretty inconsistent throughout swim meets because the recovery between races was a little bit all over the board.
mm,
I'd say in 2022 we played around with tapering a lot longer. So
mm,
like in swimming, like I was typically tapering about 3 weeks before 2022. In 2022, we tried a 5 week taper, and it actually went really well. Um, but what I thought was a weakness coming off of that is that I felt like I got pretty tired throughout the meet. I didn't feel like I was in good enough shape to hold up
mm,
over 8 days. And so I liked the results, but I realized I probably needed to do more work throughout the year if I was gonna taper that long.
yeah,
And so that was an adjustment I made or we made after 2022 of doing more work in the year. And I feel like it turned out really well for the performances in 23 and 24 in terms of being able to have good races on day one of the meet and at the Olympics and on day nine of the meet.
yeah. That's really good self awareness. It's like the ability to adapt to how you feel. I think a lot of athletes probably miss that a little bit of that self awareness, and they just kind of wing it. but you're constantly monitoring and seeing what you can be doing better. And and you're also getting older, and you've got more miles in the body. You're almost in what we call in the world of triathlon, we call it the golden 30s. So you have this the explosiveness and the raw power of your 20s, and then you get this endurance and smarts, if you like, in your 30s. And it's the
Hmm.
time to, we believe, the 30s in the world of triathlon anyway, it's the time to really make a career of it. So, and I think for you, with the head on your shoulders, I really do think, LA Olympics, I think it's going to be an interesting one for you, because I think your aerobic capacity is going to be far stronger. I think your strength as a whole is going to be a lot stronger. And it's just how much can you keep that raw power with you? And I think that's going to be really cool to watch, because I think you're going to find that it all collaborates really well. Um, Hey, I got a question about, we talked about swimming earlier. As a whole, what would you say the state of the sport is like right now? We've gone through the era of those super suits and technologies and everything. Is there anything that's exciting in the world of swimming right now that you're excited about, that's on the horizon or that's different?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think. I mean, I'll tell you like what I see as the tailwinds and the headwinds. Like I think on the tailwind side, I'm really excited about a home Olympics. Like I think,
Yeah, yeah.
LA is the media capital of the world. And so that's going to be such a show and such an opportunity for the sport to grow. In
Mm,
terms of headwinds, and this is a little bit more specifically a U.S. issue, is that the college sports landscape is completely changing, and it's turning into like pure revenue share.
mm,
And swimming's not a sport that's made money on the college level. And so I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of things that swimming needs to figure out in order to keep a lot of programs running at the college level. And
mm,
specifically for the U.S. Olympic team, universities have been the main place that lead to our Olympic medal count.
mm,
So there's a lot of headwind there. But ultimately, like I am bullish on the sport because of the opportunity of the LA Olympics. I think if we if we're prepared on the front end of that, and there's a good marketing push on the front end, and then we make sure that there's enough supply on the learn to swim side for parents that are excited about watching the Olympics. They want to get their kid into swimming lessons. We need to make sure we have enough supply on the learn to swim side. But then also on the professionalization of the sport, we need to be prepared to market the stars that come out of those Olympics, because I think they could really help propel the sport forward.
Mate, what a great answer. I think you're going to be heading up US swimming here before you know it, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, your insight there was awesome. That was brilliant. And look, don't get me wrong. I actually think it's not just swimming. I think there's a lot of sports that are having to navigate this new era we're in. And I know our sport, triathlon's trying to figure out, is it a spectator sport, or is it we just focus on being a participation sport? And it's a lot of different avenues trying to figure it out. Swimming's a bit the same. Is it a spectator sport? Is it a participation sport? Is it a university sport only, or can it move into the club arena a little bit differently? I don't know. Australia's never had the university system. It's always just been straight through clubs. They've been really reasonably successful. So, it might be an adjustment, but I still think there's going to be a lot of great swimmers coming through the program in the US, and especially with people like you at the helm. I've got a couple of audience questions. You ready to run through these real quick with me?
Absolutely.
All right. First one's a bit edgy. Um, James Sutherland asks, "You've been outspoken about fair competition and integrity in swimming. What's your take on the Russian swimmers being allowed to compete in relays at Worlds?" Oh, there you go.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think I get I get most of my information from Travis Tigert at US Anti-Doping. So he's the
Yeah.
CEO there, and so I consider him to be the expert in the space. I'm not sure what his take is on Russian athletes competing currently, but he's always looked at things from the drug testing standpoint of, look, like if if RUSADA, so that's the Russian anti-doping agency, if they're non-compliant and you have to send people from outside of Russia to do the drug testing, uh, the past couple of years, people haven't been able to go because of the Russia's in war with Ukraine, and so that's where the fear is is have they been held to the same drug testing standards that the rest of the rest of
Mm,
the world has. And so that's always the line that you're trying to walk on. And I actually don't know the answer to that. I don't know what it's looked
yeah.
like in the past year and a half. I'm just giving the preamble to what would inform my point of view there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, look, I think all of us behind closed doors with our close mates might have opinions on different things and different athletes, and but there becomes a point where as a professional athlete, there's some things you just got to keep your mouth shut about. It's like
Yeah.
you don't need to be tagged onto that. Next question, Braden Gray asks, what percentage of your training was backstroke, and when and how did you incorporate other strokes into your training?
Yeah, so I honestly still train every stroke. Because I think doing individual medley training, IM training, I think that's great for developing uh, cardiovascular endurance. So I like doing IM training for that. I like doing freestyle training for also aerobic type swimming. Butterfly is the stroke I go to when backstroke gets tired. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much someone where it's like if backstroke's hurting, like I don't need to continue to just hit
So
that.
you pick the easy stroke. When backstroke's hurting, you just go straight into butterfly.
Yeah, yeah,
Mate, I don't
yeah.
think I could do 6 strokes of it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. So I try to mix it up
Yeah,
because I'm very much in the mindset if the technique is going downhill, I don't need to
yeah,
keep on training bad habits.
yeah. That's great. James Sutherland also asks, was there a real beef between you and Coleman Stewart?
No, there's no beef between me and Coleman Stewart. There was yeah, there was we both we were both just like stuck in this 6 week bubble in Budapest in God, what year was that? 21. Uh, and so yeah, everyone was on edge by the end of that. I talked to Coleman. He totally understood where I was coming from. I understood where he was coming from, and so that was a quick conversation, and we made up quickly.
Well, James has another one for you. James's insights into your world of swimming is awesome. Why did you opt out of competing at the short course world championships this year?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I felt like I just needed to get away from swimming for a little bit. I feel like in the Olympic year, you so much err on the side of overcommitting.
Yeah.
And the way that I try to counteract with that is like, the places where I feel like I'm really sacrificing in the Olympic year, I'm trying to make up for lost time almost
Mm.
in the fall following an Olympic year. So I felt like I needed to make up for lost time with friends. And then I feel like honestly, we need to get prepared for having
A
this baby
baby.
girl. So that was a big piece of it as well.
Oh, it's a baby girl. All right. Good man. I love it. All right. One more from the audience. Lewis Roberts asks, I want to go from a 130 Ironman pace swimmer to sub 125. Besides pacing better, I've gone out to hot I've gone out too hot like most guys do. What's some good set work to build strength and endurance? Give me a
Yeah, I mean,
couple of
and so
tips. Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I think really like in in open water swimming, I feel like so much of it is about just finding your rhythm. So I think people do that in different ways. Some people are just driving that with the tempo of their arms. So I think that's
Yeah.
something you could play around with is, you could try swimming like, really like long strokes, and then you could try shortening it up and seeing how that impacts things. And if you're shortening it up, like you still want to enter like above your head. Like you still want to enter
Mm.
above your head and like get a really strong catch. If you're shortening up the stroke, shorten it up in the back. So you're instead of like fully extending the tricep at the back of your stroke, like you're maybe keeping that arm a little bit bent towards the end. That could be a way to generate a little bit more tempo and save some muscular energy in the arms.
Mm,
And yeah, I mean, I think in really it's about finding like what's your free energy. I think
mhm.
the having really good core stability in swimming is something that really helps
Yes.
body position in the water.
Mhm.
So I think the core is a really good way to get that going. Um, and then I mean I'm assuming if you're if you're competing in events that long, you're swimming a lot. So on the swimming side, I think just play around with the technique
Mm.
of the technique and the tempo.
Love it. Great answer, mate. Listen, we haven't even had a chance yet. I want to hear more about your swim schools. How they expanding? We talked about it last time we were on the show. How's it all going?
It's great. It's great. So, I mean, we built a building from the ground up in Jacksonville, Florida, and that's my hometown. So that's why we built there. So we opened up in October of this year. It's going well. Like we've got a good number of kids in the system. The families are happy. The kids look like they're having a great time. So it's been a really fun project.
Hmm.
So we'll see how this one goes. And I mean, long term, we'd love to open up multiple in the Jacksonville area and really just continue to make a bigger impact.
That's awesome. Maybe come down to South Florida here, mate. We come
Yeah,
down to
yeah,
Jupiter. We're only a couple of hours south. We need some decent swim school programs down here too. So I got a feeling that's going to that might be your flagship, but I got a feeling you're going to have some satellites pretty soon. But look, what about next for you? You obviously, you've talked about the Olympics coming up. I know you've been somebody you're always interested sort of in the VC world. You got anything interesting on the horizon in that front?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I've spent a good amount of time with a lot of investors and entrepreneurs in the Bay Area.
Mm.
So like as I turned professional in swimming, I was really nervous about a level of mental degradation. And so the way that I mean, like it's like I'm being, I guess, very blunt and direct, but yeah, I was nervous at that. So the way that I counteracted that was I tried to talk to a lot of investors and entrepreneurs and what they're building, and that did help fuel a lot of motivation, or that has helped fuel a lot of motivation for me.
Mm.
So I've made five direct investments into companies. I'm going to spend more time with Norwest Ventures, and so they've done they've done really well. I'll be spending time with their growth equity team, and I'm excited about that. I think it's cool to see like what the cutting edge is
Hmm.
of technology, of sports, of really all these different business segments, and trying to learn from those people.
Amazing, mate. It's one of those things I've talked about on this show. The last episode I had with Miles Stewart, we talked about a little bit. It's not easy for a lot of athletes that, have 10, 20, 30-year careers in sport. And the transition, I guess you call it civilian life, but you know what I mean, out of sport is is not always easy. And it's like I mentioned earlier, it's like, when you're in sport, you always have such a sense of purpose. But the fact that you're keeping your brain, what, how did you say it? Degradation, reducing the degradation. I think is brilliant that you're keeping yourself networked and you're planning for your future. I think it's all exciting stuff, mate. But listen,
Absolutely. And I think,
Ryan.
I mean, and I'll tap on that real quick because so I think there are a lot of athletes that struggle with transition out of sport, and
Mm,
I think there's a lot of great things that being a professional athlete gives you. I mean, it does give you increased access to people, and
yes.
so I'll never forget. I listened to Kevin Hart speak one time because he has his own venture fund at this point, and he said, look, like by nature of the career that I've been in, I'm able to get into rooms that I 100% do not belong in. And my goal when I'm in those rooms is just to be an absolute sponge and get all the information I can and just use it as a learning opportunity. And I think that is just it's so spot on. And so
Yeah.
that's really the route that I've been going is trying to learn as much as I can from people that are experts in something different than what I'm an expert in.
Yeah, love it, mate. Well said. Um, And look, I love these conversations. I think you and I can connect a little bit more as the time goes on here. I know you're going to have a lot on your plate in this next month, but I'm a huge fan, not just of your swimming career. Obviously, I'm a fan when I'm yelling and screaming at the TV, but also just as you as a person. I think you're a great leader. I think you've got a lot to give the world. And I'm excited about your future, buddy. But I really appreciate you taking time a week before Christmas to spend just chatting with me, buddy. It's really fun. Really,
Yeah,
really
I
great.
love it. I love it. I
Yeah.
really appreciate you having me on again. This is
Yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. Fantastic, mate. Well, have a wonderful Christmas and all the very best with your baby girl coming out and to your wife and everything else. And yeah, mate, be cheering for you on the sidelines. And for everybody else, you can find all the show notes and everything else at bennettendurance.com/media. All right. Cheers, Ryan.
All right. Thank you.